Hello again. We are Chris Lee and Chase Robinson here to preview one of the most anticipated matchups of the SEC season, if not the college football season, as Oklahoma hosts Tennessee. You can catch this one Saturday night on ABC. Tennessee is a 7.5-point favorite with an over-under of 57.5 points. As we do this on Monday morning, that makes for a Vegas predicted final score of Tennessee 33 and Oklahoma 25. Before we get into the game, we remind you our channel brought to you by BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000 when the game is over. Head on over to our online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of over 150 slots games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet online. The game starts here. All right, both teams come in unbeaten. Tennessee is just clocked teams. Oklahoma's not been as easy the last couple of weeks. The Sooners did look a little bit better, and they went over Tulane. But let's start this side of the matchup analysis with Tennessee's offense against Oklahoma's defense. Some stats to know. Tennessee's averaging almost 64 points on 79 offensive snaps a game. The Vols run it 59% of the time, 7.5 yards per rush play, and 10.5 yards per pass play. That takes sacks out of it. 1.3% turnover rate. Oklahoma defense, on the other hand, also been pretty good. 11.3 points a game on 64 snaps. 3.1 yards per rush play, 5.2 per pass play, and Oklahoma is forcing turnovers at a whopping 5.2% turnover rate. That's something the Sooners have done well at. Chase, let's start with the Tennessee offense. What are we seeing there with Nico Iamaleava and crew?
I mean, they're elite. What we've seen in the first 3 games, and I know it's not been a gauntlet of the first 3 games, but regardless of who they were playing, this offense has put up terrific numbers. You mentioned Nico Iamaleava. He's 48 of 67, 698 yards, and 6 touchdowns, 71% completion rate. His numbers are great. Dylan Sampson, though, has been terrific to watch so far this year. He has 363 yards. He averages 7.9 per run, has 9 touchdowns on the season in the first 3 games, so a tremendous start for Dylan Sampson. And Nico has been right on target with throwing the ball as well. He's thrown for 6 touchdowns. Like I mentioned his numbers a minute ago, and then you look receiving the ball. Dante Thornton has been a big part of this offense. He has 169 yards, 2 touchdowns. Chris Brazzell, 140 yards with a touchdown. And there's guys all over this list who have been able to be a big part of this offense. Bru McCoy, 108 yards. Squirrel White, 108 yards. And so they may not have scored yet this season, but they're a big part of this offense. And Nico just so impressive throwing the ball. I mean, he hits his targets. He's all the talk of the offseason about how good he is. He's that good, and he makes this offense elite. But Dylan Sampson as well has established the run game so well for this Tennessee team. And you mentioned their turnovers a minute ago. They don't turn the ball over. They protect the football, and they do everything on offense well. They have a good offensive line. I think that they don't make mistakes, and that's what we've seen the first 3 games is they just don't make mistakes. And if you don't make mistakes, you're going to win football games.
Yeah, they've just got everything. They've got the quarterback, they've got the running back, they've got the line, they've got a ton of receivers, they've got depth. There's nothing not to like about Tennessee's offense so far, and a lot to like about Oklahoma's defense too. Anytime you are led by a pair of first-team All-Americans, that is the case for the Sooners. Linebacker Danny Stutsman, 33 tackles, 1.5 for loss, and a hurry. Billy Bowman, their All-American safety, who had 6 picks a year ago, had a big pick in Saturday's win over Tulane in the second half off a deflection. He's had 11 tackles, and they've got depth. They've got just all kinds of guys. Kendel Dolby is a big piece of what they've done, although he's been hurt a little bit. They've got Gracen Halton up front, who's done some things. Ethan Downs. They've got in the secondary, they're just really deep there. Woodi Washington has got 6 tackles. He's been a starter. I think one thing that we said with Oklahoma coming into the year is that their back seven with Downs, Stutsman, Dolby, Williams, Washington, about as good as anybody's. And, of course, Bowman, too. The issue for them, and this is going to be a bigger issue on the offensive line, the injuries have just started to really pile up. Dolby and Gentry Williams both out last week. And they've got a competent defensive line, too. And I think the big thing is just the turnovers they force. When you're forcing turnovers on over 5% of the snaps, Chase, that is really why Oklahoma has been able to stay in ball games while the offense has sputtered. But as you mentioned, Tennessee, not really a team that gives up a lot of turnovers. So I think that's a real key on this side of the matchup is just can Oklahoma continue to get the turnovers at the rate that it has. There's been a little good fortune in there. 6 fumbles for the opponent. Oklahoma's recovered all 6 of them. So little noise in those numbers, but still, we know this OU defense is legit. We know this Tennessee offense is legit. And I think that's the side of the matchup that's going to be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, that is interesting. You bring that up. I think if Oklahoma can create turnovers, that will be big because, again, like we said, Tennessee they don't make mistakes. They don't turn the ball over. And so Oklahoma needs to create those, needs to force those. And I think that could definitely go in the favor of Oklahoma and benefit them greatly if they're able to do that, make them make mistakes. I feel like that's what Oklahoma needs to do this weekend.
Let's flip sides of the matchup here and talk about when Oklahoma's got the ball. The Sooners averaging 33.7 points on 67 snaps, 5.1 yards per rush play, 4.4 per pass play. Boy, didn't think I'd see that out of an OU offense. And again, that takes out for sacks, which Oklahoma's been sacked a bunch of times to some offensive line dysfunction, kind of beyond its control. I'll get into that in just a minute. 1% turnover rate. Tennessee is giving up 4.3 points a game. I know the Vols hadn't exactly played a killer schedule, but they did play NC State. That's impressive what they've done so far on just 52 snaps. So get that one. Tennessee has had the ball 79 snaps on average, been on the field, its defense 52 snaps. I don't know if any team in the country has got a snap discrepancy like that one. 3.3 yards per rush play, 4.7 per pass play, and a 2.5% turnover rate for Oklahoma. I think the story always starts with injuries, and we're doing this Monday morning. So check your internet and your favorite sources by the time this game is kicked off. But Nick Anderson, their receiver, out last week against Tulane. Jarrell Farouk is out, I think, for the season or most of it. I think it's maybe half the season now that I think about it. I think he broke a foot. Offensive line has just been a mess. Branson Hickman, their starting center, transfer from SMU, probably one of the top centers in the league, went down, I think, in the first quarter of the Temple game in the opener, hasn't been back. He's questionable this week. They said last week he's getting better. We have no update as we do this Monday. Center Jarian Hatchett out for the year. He was taking Hickman's place, and right tackle Jake Taylor out last week. That's a bunch of injuries there, and I'm not even sure I've got them all. That is a big reason why Oklahoma has struggled. I did see some things last week that were signs of improvement. Jackson Arnold, their dynamic former 5-star recruit who is a sophomore now, started the bowl game last year and, of course, was a backup all season. Rushed for 97 yards on Saturday and had one of the key offensive plays of the game where he got open on what looked like a design pass play and scrambled for like a 20-yard score. He's very elusive, very talented player. Again, the questions around him, a lot of those are over injuries to targets. Gavin Sawchuk, who was their top running back coming into the season, just has not been the same guy. I think injuries have hampered him there. You saw Javante Barnes take over more of the rushing load. And their receiving core, when it's healthy, I think is going to be a pretty good one. But health an issue. But the big star for them, Deion Burks, the Purdue transfer, 7 catches for 80 yards last week. Oklahoma, when it's got all its guys healthy, I think can be an offense to be reckoned with. Maybe not the upside that we thought going into the season, but at least a competent group. But boy, they have got their hands full against a Tennessee defense, and particularly that defensive line, which we've talked about a lot.
Yeah, I mean, when you going into the season, I mean, they had some All-American guys. I mean, they had some All-SEC guys on this defensive line for Tennessee, and maybe the best that they've had in a long time there in Knoxville. And they've been dominant to start the season. Now, I think they're getting into definitely a tougher part of the schedule than what they've seen for Tennessee. But still, this defense is elite, and they have only allowed 13 points within the first 3 games. They're holding their opponents to averaging 4.3 points per game. Just incredible what this defense is doing. And, and it's not a lot of talk going into the season was, oh, James Pierce is going to be, yeah, he's doing his job, but there's also so many guys around him that Pierce is not getting all the, all the love and all the tackles and everything. Like, there's so many guys around him. Will Brooks has been really impressive to me, defensive back. He had that 85-yard pick six for Tennessee, and Keenan Peely has come back really strong. He was out with injury last year, and so they kind of had to shuffle the defense around. Well, Peely's back, and I feel like he picked up right where he left off before he went out with injury. Jacoby Thomas doing big things. And so to me, there's so many guys on defense stepping up that we thought would, but also that we didn't think would, or maybe surprises. But this defense is dominant. And again, they're about to get into a harder part of the schedule. And so I don't think we're just going to see them hold teams to 4 points per game. I think it's going to look much different, and may not as many shutouts pitched, as they have so far. But look, this Tennessee defense is dominant, and they're catching Oklahoma at a very hard time. You mentioned it. They are hit with injuries really hard right now, and that's something you can't help if you're Oklahoma. And so I think this game is going to look different than what we thought, maybe just because of the injuries for Oklahoma and the way this Tennessee team is offensively and defensively, they're really good. But I feel like this defense is catching Oklahoma at a really bad time for the Sooners.
Yeah, I think you might be onto something there. Let's get into picks and why. Chase, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm going to take Tennessee. I really like what I'm seeing on both sides of the ball. I really like the way the offense moves the ball. There's so much talent on this Tennessee team. I think they're going to be scoring a lot of points in every game that they play. I think this one could be different because I do like Oklahoma's defense a lot. I don't think they score as much as they have lately, but I still think Tennessee is able to score a lot. And I think they're, like I just mentioned, I think they're catching the Oklahoma defense not at a good time because of injuries, and so they're going to be able to make some key stops. But, yeah, I got the Vols in this one.
Yeah, I see it a lot like that, too. Before the season, this was a top 5 game of the year in the SEC for me, no question about it. I just thought that Oklahoma's offense might be doing something like what Tennessee's was. The offensive line issues just killed that. And I think at this point it's fair to say Nico is ahead of Jackson Arnold in the matchup of quarterbacks, although I don't count Arnold out to closing the deficit when they get clicking and get some help. But I think a lot of it, we're going to be focusing on that offense versus defense matchup because I really want to see how Tennessee will handle Bowman and Stutsman and all that OU throws at them. Tennessee's not seen anything like that. But I think the real problem for Oklahoma, this is a day and age where the top teams are putting up points and lots of them. And we just have not seen that explosive dimension from that Oklahoma offense. Even in week 1, that point total to Temple, I think it was 51, was not really indicative of some kind of offensive domination. They got a lot of help from the defense in that one. I just look at what you've got, a line that still is coming together with all the new parts and all the injuries. You got to block Omari Thomas, Omar Norman Lott, James Pierce, Keenan Peely, all those guys up front. You figure Tim Banks of Tennessee will just throw kind of a lot at them. I just feel like at this point, I guess, I don't know. It's just hard for me to see Oklahoma being able to go blow for them in a game where you're going to need to score some points. Again, I do look back to Oklahoma's turnover rate. The Sooners are forcing him at a very high rate, and that could be the wild card. But it just feels like a game where it makes sense for Tennessee to win, even if Oklahoma is the host team. That said, can't wait to see it. You never know in college football from week to week, but we're both going to lean on the Vols here. All right, we'll recap it Saturday night after most of the games are over. Way to get that is to go to your notifications, set those to on so you know when we get content. Of course, you have to subscribe. Hope you do that. Hit the thumbs up button. That helps our analytics here. And we also do baseball and basketball content even in the off season. Even this week, we are pumping that out. And if you want to advertise, we reach millions of viewers a year. Caroline.smith@southeastern14.com. For Chase Robinson and Chris Lee, we are Southeastern 16, presented by Bet Online.